Are there Nazis living in Argentina? Is it a refuge for former SS soldiers? And were they welcomed here, or did they get here for other reasons? Welcome to another Gaz Right video, and today a little bit of a different one, a little bit of a history lesson. And when I say lesson, it is going to be year 7, year 8 quality. It went on an unbelievable tour with a bloke called Max, a historian, works at the Holocaust Museum. If you want the actual 100% fact, if you want to actually go on the tour, bang me a message in the comments, I'll send you his number. But I like doing a little recap, because when you come out here, I had like the very base level knowledge of, Nazis flew to Argentina, and we wanted to find out a little bit more. So hopefully I'm going to recount a little bit of that, share a little bit of knowledge based on a little walking tour. It goes without saying, the walking tour, free walking tour. Actually, no, it wasn't a free walking tour. This time you had to pay up front, which was £20. Small tour, about 10 people, and I'm going to be looking down a lot in this one. Normally I have a couple of notes and I'm locked into the camera, but today we're dialing in on the laptop. There's far too many dates and pieces of information, and I'm just gonna have to refer back to, because there was just so much information on the day. I was literally like writing notes down the whole time. We went to 6 different locations all around Buenos Aires, slowly but surely getting Buenos Aires locked in instead of Buenos Aires. But we digress from the point. I think the main conception or preconception is there are Nazis here. Argentina supported Germany and allowed them to move freely, and that's kind of what the tour discusses. I'll just tell you straight up front, we're not holding any information. They actually found out there were 180 confirmed former Nazis who moved to Argentina, and that's based on like absolute fact. They've released all the classified documents. It doesn't include like foot soldiers and so forth, so people who were generally in that space, there'll obviously be a lot more. But let's go back to the old start. Obviously, immigration is a huge part of Argentina, Buenos Aires, all across Argentina in general. So obviously back in the 1880s to 1914, 6.5 million Europeans moved to Argentina. The total population at the time was about 20 million people, and they saw this as a bit of a genocide against the indigenous people, because it was predominantly pushed for white Europeans to move over here. There are a lot of Italians, about 42%, 35% Spanish, and then the next highest population was Russian, which was at like 4%, and then Germans at the time, in like the 1920s, 1930s, made up about 80,000 people here in Buenos Aires. So yeah, there's an undertone of genocide against the local people, and I think that's why there's a lot of preconceptions of, the government would support it then in Germany, other countries, against the Jews, etc. As well. So that was the kind of undertone, the scene setting. And he was saying one of the first places we went to was Luna Park Theatre, where Maradona held his wedding reception. So you see all like the nice photos, the nice buzz and so forth. But back in like the 1920s, when like the Germans were fleeing like the Great Depression, lots of them moved over here. So as I said, about 80,000 people. And there was a big contingent of those supporting Hitler. So let me get the old dates right. So when in 1938, when the Germans took over Austria, there was a huge rally at the Luna Park Theatre supporting that. And one of the questions what somebody asked was like, did people understand it's the other side of the world? Did they understand what they were supporting? Did they understand how bad it was, and so forth? 5 years earlier was the first concentration camp, so that everyone was well aware they were supporting someone that was not good, that was causing harm and so forth. So quite a weird thing to think that people coming out on the other side of the world against quite a large population of Jewish people. You were saying, Max saying it's the 5th largest population of Jews in the entire world. Obviously we're going to go Israel, London, New York, can't remember the other one, but yeah, so there's a big divide, I guess, within that. And then, so there's 15,000 people supporting it. Then there's a counter protest of 20,000 people. So it wasn't like one of those where somebody stands up for something and nobody does anything about it. There was like a real headbutt in the community here. So the most famous Nazi they found was a guy called Adolf Eichmann. Again, I'm going to mispronounce the German names, the Italian names, the Argentinian names. You know we roll on this channel. We actually went to the coffee shop where he used to go all the time, and Max was saying the guy doesn't like Max doing the tour. It's like a German guy that runs it now. He doesn't like Max doing the tour, but he uses like the Eichmann stuff as a selling point, which is pretty mad to be like, oh yeah, we had a former Nazi come here. Not usually something, but I guess, do you know what I mean? It's history. People like to come and understand and delve a little bit deeper into that sort of stuff. So he was like the architect of the final solution. So when we find, like, I'm not big into history. I studied history literally like year 7 and stuff like that. So 99% of things I learned yesterday were super new to me. He was doing all like the railway, the logistics, the industrial side behind things, and that's often the way that like high-ranking like SS Nazis and soldiers and Nazis like would position themselves away from the actual killing and harm and so forth. But yeah, he came over after the war. This was pretty crazy actually. So he stayed in Genoa, and then he got forged documents via the Red Cross. And they were saying a lot of people moved via the Red Cross on false passports. He came over on a passport under Richard Clement, and then via the Vatican as well. Apparently there's a high-ranking bishop that they found that helped a lot of people move out of Germany during that time. But apparently this guy couldn't get any of his money over here. Pretty humble guy, built his house from scratch, worked in a hydroelectric company, and yeah, lived a fairly humble life. And then his son ended up seeing a local girl here, German girl, ended up telling her, oh, this is my true identity. And it ended up being basically her dad was a Jew that survived one of the concentration camps. So spoke to people in Europe, should we bring the charges here? No, let's bring the charges in Israel. So yeah, they got the boys together. They came over from Israel. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this. I'm trying to remember and recount it as we go. And basically they brought a private jet, and they thought, oh, well, the Argentinians won't extradite somebody, or we don't want to leave it to chance. And they actually identified him, not by his fingerprints, because there was no records, no dental records either, by his earlobes, which I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently that's a very recognisable thing. They drugged him, dressed him up as a pilot, and then literally like smuggled him onto a plane to take him back to Israel for trial. So yeah, absolutely insane. Charges brought in 1957, and yeah, was just yeah, absolutely insane stuff. We went to the San Martin Park, which is like a neighbourhood full of embassies, loads of different like palaces, which yeah, we're now like a weapons museum. And then the big undertone or question that maybe Max was pushing, it was, there are Nazis here. He told us that at the end, obviously. I know I've told you at the start because we don't withdraw that information, but it was, how much did the German people, President Peron and the government know? How much did they turn a blind eye to, etc.? And the answer is ambiguous. It is a case of, after the war, Peron was looking to industrialise the country. How can we do that? So obviously immigration of scientists, engineers, high-level people in those fields, and they weren't paying as high as places in Europe, in America. So who would maybe take less money to move to somewhere like that? Somebody that wanted out of Germany, somebody that maybe, as we said, was a Nazi previously. And that's kind of the undertone where it was like, did they know, did they not know? Did they turn a blind eye? My read on what Max was saying is, they knew, but they turned a blind eye to it because they knew they were getting a certain level of engineers, scientists to help them move forward. Peron obviously is a pretty interesting character because it was like, what were his politics? Helped like an Austrian dictator escape after the war, but and then the same instance, he put a pension scheme in. He gave the vote to women, appointed many Jews as part of his government, and he was one of the first countries in South America to accept Israel as an actual country. Increased governmental workers' pay by 30%, but then on the flip side was letting in war criminals, was confiscated property with yeah, without a cause. So I think it just sounds like a crazy balance of for the people, against the people, morality, I guess what's no morality, not moral, moral, and then also censor the media. But I think that turning a blind eye is, a really interesting part of things, to be honest. And one of the key places, me and them went to Bariloche, which is like North Patagonia, a few weeks ago, and we were literally like, it's so, you feel as if you're in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, one of those countries as you're walking around, like all the buildings and everything. And Max was telling us that is where predominantly most of them kind of moved to. After the war. There was an Austrian scientist, his name, I forget it now, but he said to Peron, like, I can get you nuclear fission, I can get you nuclear energy and nuclear, like a nuclear bomb. And ultimately took so much money, they're unsure what he did or where he siphoned it, but this bloke didn't know what he was doing. All the money's gone, bled the country dry, which is obviously, the people are a bit like, where's the money? And then obviously had to come out with this, we've been in a secret project giving, former members of, the old SS money on that front. So that is less than ideal. So obviously there is another one as well, Joseph Mengele, who I'm pretty sure even I knew before coming here, and I'm a very under-read historian. Obviously the angel of death and one of the main people in Auschwitz. And obviously the one thing I did know is around like the twin stuff, using one as like a test subject and one as like the negative. And apparently they've looked at now, he came over to Argentina, used a false name, and to get access to children and twins and continue kind of doing what he was doing before, he posed as a paediatrician, which is insane. When they found out, I guess, about other SS soldiers, obviously Adolf Eichmann, etc., being captured, he flew to, I think it was Uruguay, then, let me get the old notes up, went to Paraguay, then to Brazil, and they were like, he drowned in a river in 1979, but Max was saying there's a lot of reading, a lot of literature and understanding that, he was assassinated, he was killed, and so forth. So lots of interesting information. And they were saying, what was Argentina's stance in the war? Argentina's stance, and it was like, they were neutral throughout, and then just before the end, they were like, we support the Allies, and it was kind of just support the side that was going to win. When ultimately, the end of the day, saying that Peron was more of an idealist, someone that wanted to industrialize the company, and did the ends justify the means? Do you know what I mean? Letting in people with extremely bad backgrounds, was that fine if it was good for the people, for Argentina? So it was a kind of, he didn't do it in support of Nazis and what was happening over there, but he did it because it was good for the country. Again, that was what Max was pushing to us. I'll give you the information and let you decide on what you think on that. That's kind of what I thought, to be honest. But again, it's pretty hard to say. And then in more recent times, they did what I guess some of the more graphic photos that he showed us. So obviously 180 confirmed SS soldiers moved over, then obviously had children, and then there was a big surge in the 60s where they started, like Nazi sons started to like kidnap and rape and kill Jewish girls, and there's one brutal picture where they show where like they've cut like a swastika on both of the girls' legs. So crazy stuff. And then there was 2 car bombs in the 1990s into the Jewish embassy, and there wasn't like a proper investigation. And Max was saying a bit like, even now the people of Argentina are just like, why is there not an investigation? What's happened? But if there was one slight positive out of that, we're sorry for doing that, they declassified all the documentation and information they had on SS soldiers, Nazi soldiers, and people coming into the country, and that's why now they can confirm there was 180 people where they can 100% confirm that's what they did in the previous life. So that is a whistle-stop tour. So if you're wondering, are the Nazis in Argentina? Yes. Hopefully I've recounted most of that. I think it's good to go on these tours. I think when we go to nice places, you go to more rough places, you go to places where it's extremely wealthy, where it's extremely poor. I think life is all about putting yourself in different situations, understanding the macroeconomics, understanding the history behind things. I'm no historian, and like I said, I'm just trying to recount as much as I could from that. So yeah, hopefully it's a little bit of insight. If you know more than me, if I've got things slightly wrong, let me know in the old comments. But yeah, I would definitely do the tour if you're into your history. And then yeah, Bariloche is a place where lots of them move to. So yeah, another one in the books. Tigre up next, a little food and drink tour. We've got a little asado cooking class, and then checking out a few birwaris at the old weekend. So this one probably a little bit more serious than normal. Back to the usual content come tomorrow. Question in the comments, hit subscribe button, still en route to 3K subs. Get cooking, baby.